Hey guys, what is up? It is me, Pagey here once again with another video on The Flash Season 7. So we are now in the full swing of The Flash Season 7 at this point now that we are 4 going on 5 episodes into it with a lot already happening, seeing that we were wrapping up the story from the shortened Season 6 due to hashtag COVID, while also setting up stuff going forward for the proper Season 7 story. Now we know what storyline is happening over the next half a season roughly with the new forces of the Sage, Still and Strength and the impact that they will have on citizens of Central City as well as Barry and the rest of Team Flash. But though we know what is immediately in front of us over the next several weeks and coming over the next few episodes, we are always wondering what is next. And, well, our good old now deceased friend from the future, that of course being Abracadabra, gave us a little tease at potentially what is to come. Maybe not next, but at least soon. So in the most recent episode, we had the return of Abracadabra appearing for the first time since his premiere or debut episode back towards the end of Season 3 of The Flash. Now, back then in Season 3, Abracadabra dropped the name of DeVoe, or, the Thinker, teasing the upcoming Season 4 villain. And with his appearance in Season 7 approaching, we were wondering whether he would also name drop any other future villains for the show, and potentially this is what we got. So in the episode that just passed, Abracadabra was able to remember his life before the Crisis on Infinite Earths event, which led to the downfall of most of the multiverse, and giving Abracadabra a view at a life with a family that was now non-existent, sending him on a quest of revenge, you could say. But that isn't the only villainous activity or villainous things that we learn of or heard of. We also learn of a future threat for the Flash potentially, and that is when Abracadabra warns Barry that in the future, a force known as the Chronarch becomes an enemy of the Flash. But you might be wondering, Page mate, who is Chronarch? Now in the comics, the Chronarch has had a number of forms or mantles or people that have held that title. Unfortunately, just what happened, there's people that have been misled. So unfortunately, people did do a quick Google search or Google image search specifically when the name was dropped, or when the name drop happened, I guess you could say, on the show, and they pulled up the character with this mantle that is unrelated to what the show is most likely going for, and that is the one from the Legion of Superheroes sort of side of DC Comics, where, as you can see on screen, he's like this insect-like being, and he's called Cicadia Senius. Yeah, we're bringing back something related to Cicada. Now, he's the director of the Time Institute, which does like research revolved around the time barrier. So people thought that we were getting a big insect as the villain, which isn't the case. Well, it doesn't look like it's the case, at least, if they go down this route, potentially. Now, the name drop of the Chronarch that we got in episode 4 of this season, The Flash, seems to be more of a reference to a different kind of Chronarch, that being one who was actually linked to Abracadabra in the comics, as well as The Flash. So in the comics in the late 80s, during the Mark Waid run of The Flash with Wally West as the holder of that mantle, the Chronarch is this huge computer system that controls every aspect of life in the 64th century, which is of course where Abracadabra is from, to the finest point in detail. Like, he just controls when they wake up, what time they work for, every little thing like that. Now, Abracadabra is actually banished back to the 20th century due to standing up against this heavily controlled society. You could argue that he was sort of a hero in that future because he was standing against this ridiculous system. Now, in that comic, the Flash eventually impedes with the way that society is controlled in this future, but then also brings Abracadabra back to the present day in order for him to face trial the 20th century way. Now, explaining who and what Chronarch is, well, that's all well and good, but was the name drop on the show by Abracadabra this week an actual tease for what is to come, similar to the DeVoe name drop from Season 3, or is it just like an Easter egg saying that Chronarch is connected to Abracadabra in the comics and why he comes to the past? Well, let's go over exactly how the character or being of Chronarch could be introduced and used on the show, whether that be this season or maybe next season, Season 8, even though this season connects more to it, and we'll explain why. So a way in which I think they could make Chronarch work on the show would be that we don't see them at first. I'm going to say them because it's just a computer. It's not a he or she. I don't know. Anyway, so the way that they can make Chronarch work is that we don't actually see them at first, or at least the Flash and the rest of Team Flash have no interaction with them at first. I would prefer that we don't see them. Maybe we hear a voice or something, but I would prefer if we don't actually see what Chronarch is until maybe just before Team Flash finds out. If not, maybe at the exact same time, say like Barry or something learns about it. That always seems a bit cooler to me, but I guess it depends how the narrative works. Now, obviously, Chronarch would be in the future. They are this big threat and this big force in that future. Whether they make it the 64th century or not, I think it would make sense if they did, because that's where Abracadabra is from, but I don't know, we'll have to wait and see what they do. However, Chronarch isn't the one, becoming this big walking computer that's attacking people. He sends various mercenaries or villains, what do you want to call them, back to the present day of the Flash in order to attack and attempt to kill the Flash, as the Flash, as a superhero to the Chronarch, is this massive threat, and potentially they know that the Flash is after them, whether that's a few years now from Barry's time, or it could be 20 years from now. This could be a future Flash sort of thing, and the Chronarch is trying to take out the force of the Flash, or to thread the Flash before it's too late, so sooner rather than later. Or they could even make it that maybe the Flash tried to come to the future once and learnt about the Chronarch, tried to take him down then, or maybe did something along those lines, but the Chronarch was able to rebuild, but they still see him as a threat that needs to be taken out, and taking out the Flash when he's much younger rather than 10 or 20 years from now is a smarter option. Now, the show could even make it that the Chronarch knows exactly when the Flash will arrive in his time to take him down. Maybe there's some future related thing where the Chronarch is able to calculate to the day or even the hour or even the minute when the Flash will arrive in the 64th century again to take him down, which would add this like a ticking time bomb of sorts to the side of the villain. So Chronarch knows how long he has left until he's potentially taken down. So there is a threat on both sides. We have the future Flash taking down Chronarch, and we could potentially see that on screen. So we could see a 10-year-old, not 10-year-old, but like a version of the Flash that's 10 years older or 20 years older, potentially coming to take down the Chronarch, and we might see that on screen, maybe in like a finale or something like that. That'd be very, fairly cool. But alongside the Chronarch having this threat that he's scared of that's coming towards him, there are various threats and like villains and mercenaries, whatever you want to call them, being sent, from the future or different parts in history by the Chronarch to the present day to take down the Flash. So not every villain or mercenary, if you want to call it, the Chronarch is sending back would be from the 64th century. They could have it that it's someone from 10 years in the future from us, but they're contracted to come back to the present day to take on the Flash. So we could see cool takes on characters that maybe we've seen on the show before, but they're older versions or they're different people holding those mantles. So an example could be maybe like an Owen Mercer, who is like another version of the Captain Boomerang, but he'd probably be too young now, but they could do him as like a 10-year-older version, if that makes sense. So he could be 12 right now, all of a sudden 10 years from now he's 22 years old, and he gets sent back to take on the Flash. They could do something along those lines, which would be fairly cool, and opens up the pool of villains that they could potentially use. Now, doing something along these lines, it doesn't have to be exactly like this or like what I just said, but something like that roughly could lead to something else that Abracadabra also brought up last episode, and that was that, or revolved around the Flash becoming obsessed with the future. And I think that could be an interesting storyline for the most part, to see Barry like a bit unsure about what is to come back and potentially get him and his loved ones, especially if the people that come back to attack him also know who his real identity is. They know that the Flash is Barry Allen. Like, that wouldn't be the best for our good old friend Barry, would it? Oh, you've just randomly showed up in the future in my bedroom. That's not good. However, a line on the poster for Season 7 of The Flash is fairly interesting, and it would be cool if this tied into the storyline, and that tagline on the poster is, "The future favors the fast." So while most of us might have thought that the Chronarch name drop was a throwaway Easter egg line, maybe they have been telling us for a while that the big bad for this season is from the future. It's a threat from the future that Barry has to deal with, and Barry will find a way to make him being in the past more of an advantage in this situation. Now, it will be interesting to see if there's constant future time travel for Barry if they go down this route with this storyline. That's for us to wait and find out, but I don't know, that gets me excited. Now, the last question around this is around Chronarch. Will they still be a computer, or will they be like a functional being? Like, can they walk around and stuff? I guess that's up for it. Like, you could just make it where it is just like ridiculous like system in the future. Like, I will I'll put on screen the comic book cover. So it's The Flash number 68 from 1987 by Mark Waid. So if you want to go read this comic, you can, whether it's, illegally for free on the internet, or you want to buy it on Comixology if it's there or something. I'd suggest go reading it, because it'll give you all you really need to know about Chronarch and potentially something they could do there. And it'll take you like 10 minutes to read it, even if it's that long. So decent read, especially if you're already into the comics. Now, the system that they use in that comic book, that could work on the show. It'd look a bit out there, I think, if they did. But then again, it's the 64th century in the future. But they could just make him a being. Maybe it's like an AI or something. Maybe Chronarch was this computer, and then maybe for his safety, he was put on a being that can actually move back and forth, that can actually walk around. So maybe there's a bit of both there. Maybe we might see him in both forms if they go down this route with this storyline. Who knows? And in regards to whether it would be this season or next season, I think it makes more sense to be this season. I think it makes more sense for it to be the back half of this season. Just because of the tagline and everything. It's already been set up early this season with Abracadabra if they want to go down that route. And I just think it would work. And actually, talking about it makes me want to see it, to be completely honest. But you might be wondering, well, Pagey, what about Godspeed? They said he's showing up. Well, Godspeed could actually tie into the first half storyline for this season. Like, we know that a bit of that lightning that shot out wasn't red, blue, or green. There was a bit of Speed Force lightning, so maybe it goes to Godspeed. So maybe Godspeed is only in the storyline from, well, this week's episode of episode 4 through to episode 11. That's the first, well, that's a graphic novel number 3, or the first proper graphic novel for this season. So maybe that's where he lies in the back half. It's a completely different thing. That obviously is us for us to wait and find out. But I think doing it the back half of the season would work better. But if they left it for season 8, I wouldn't complain either. But I think this actually be a fairly cool storyline, even though it is like a minor villain at the same time. But it'd be interesting to see which way they would go with it. But thanks for watching, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it wasn't confusing. If it was, feel free to ask any other questions in the comment section down below, and I'll get back to you. But of course, just if you enjoyed the video, it'd be awesome if you could drop a like on it to show support for the channel and everything like that. Let me know in the comment section down below your various opinions on all of this. Would you like to see Chronarch, or is it a big no from you? Just be honest, let me know. And of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure to subscribe. And yeah, I'll catch you guys later. Goodbye.